Kareem Hunt to the New Orleans Saints, Anthony Barr as well. We'll discuss those two veteran additions. And if New Orleans is the favorite in the NFC South Plus, Odell Beckham Jr. made some interesting comments about Super Bowl 56.
You are Locked On NFL, your daily NFL podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hi again, and welcome in to Locked On NFL on a Wednesday. I'm James Rapien. He is Tony Wiggins. Thank you so much for making us your first listen. Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, follow wherever you get your podcast, and shout out to all the everydayers that listen to Locked On NFL and make us one of the most listened to NFL podcasts. And Tone, let's start with the news of Tuesday, which broke on Tuesday afternoon. Kareem Hunt, former Pro Bowler, has been out there, has been one of the many veteran running backs out there, but he is expected to sign with the New Orleans Saints. And this deal comes on the heels of Alvin Kamara receiving a 3-game suspension. They also have Kendre Miller in their backfield. They also are lacking a pass catcher, right? With Kendre Miller, he's a rookie. It's unproven there. And so they go get a guy in Kareem Hunt. Do you like this fit? Do you not like this fit? Because I look at this running back room and they have some proven guys. Jamal Williams, they added this offseason. Obviously, a guy in Kareem Hunt that we know, that we're aware of, and that's been out there for a long time, but he has a new home in the Big Easy.
They won't be hurting for running back, for proven running back depth, that's for sure. With I do think it's slightly redundant, even though he's probably a little bit more versatile than Jamal Williams. But this shows me that for the price, that they get it in terms of how to actually build and fill out a roster. You know, a lot of people use the third and fourth running back as just like filler. I mean, like, they're playing the hits here and what they're doing. They're stacking the deck. They got 4 guys that they can 3 at least we know about that can really go out and play. So I like the move. I really do like the move for them offensively. Defensively, I don't know what Barr has left. I mean, the last time I saw him, I believe it was in Dallas. This is not the Anthony Barr that was at his prime and at his peak with Minnesota. But once again, you know, having a veteran that you can get 15, 20 snaps from, and a guy that understands, and you don't have to bring him up to speed on things. From day one, he's going to be able to contribute just based on IQ. So good move for him. And I do believe that they think these are the type of moves that you make when you think you are going to be the favorite to win your division. These are not the kind of moves you make when you're rebuilding.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I want to get to Anthony Barr and discuss him for just in just a second. But Kareem Hunt, it's interesting to me because I think a few years ago, if you would have said Kareem Hunt and Alvin Kamara in the same backfield, it would have been just like insane. And I know the word out of Cleveland was that Hunt kind of lost a step, wasn't as fast last year, and he's dealt with some injuries and things like that. But yeah, you have the 3-game suspension with Kamara. But after that, the idea of the idea that you can bring a rookie along slowly in Kendre Miller. But 2, you have Williams as this bruising short yardage back, goal line back. He can take the punishment, while Alvin Kamara is your primary receiving threat out of the backfield. We know how electric he can still be.
Right.
And Kareem Hunt can do a little bit of both. And so I like this. I like this for Derek Carr. I like it for the Saints offense. Yes, they're going to throw it, but I think this team wants to win with defense. And they want to win with their playmaking ability, and whether that is Chris Olave, maybe Michael Thomas can stay healthy. I'm not banking on that. So why not add another playmaker in another area that could use it depending on health? I think this move makes sense. And when I saw it, I was like, oh, he's working out for them. And then quickly, I think Diana Rossini was the one to report that they intended to sign him. It's like, oh, well, that's a great move. Now, for Anthony Barr, and we have to see the contract numbers. I bet it won't be crazy. He's
right
at the tail end of his career. Certainly the running back market is what it is. Anthony Barr, the reason I like it is because that defense was already stout. That defense is already, you go to a game in New Orleans. I was there last year for a game. It is crazy when the opposing offense takes the field and you have DeMario Davis in the middle and you have Tyrann Mathieu. Obviously, you have Cameron Jordan in the middle of that defensive line. They're good. They're talented. And so you're right. Like if you're asking Barr to be the old Anthony Barr, well, you're not going to get that. But he doesn't need to be that in this defense. And so I really like what they've done because if you're Derek Carr, what do you want? You want a good defense and you want some playmakers. And they added a playmaker. I think he could still make some plays in Kareem Hunt. And you add a guy who could bolster your defense a bit at this stage of training camp with the regular season just over a month away.
Yeah, and also whenever I see running back signings of this ilk, the first thing that I think about is they want quality depth. It's the same thing I said about Barr. He's going to understand pass protection. You want to keep your quarterback upright. If passing is what you're going to do, one of the things that folks never really think about are the ability of the backs to pick up things that they're familiar with, exotic blitzes, twists, turns. You don't want to get your quarterback blown up because some rookie guy's got his head on a swivel and is spinning around, or doesn't have his head on a swivel and doesn't really understand where he is going to go. I think the Hunt signing, I don't know why I had this feeling they were going to sign the hometown kid in Leonard Fournette. I really thought that's what they were going to do. I think Kareem Hunt is less expensive because playoff Lenny is playoff Lenny, right? He's going to demand a little bit more money, and he's been more proven over a long period of time. And look, Hunt had some problems, he had a domestic issue, where he was caught hitting someone. And that's not something that teams can get over really, really quickly. And no matter how long it goes, you're going to take what people offer you. That is not, you don't have a whole bunch of leverage to negotiate when you have something like that hanging over your head, because teams can sometimes get in the way. It can get in the way of progress because teams have to explain that to people. There's going to be somebody in their community that wants to explain why he signed. So that's just the bottom line. I think Leonard Fournette is going to cost a little bit more. I think guys like him and Zeke will cost a little bit more than Kareem Hunt. But I think it's a real, real good move. And it's going to lead right into this next segment that we have, because somebody picked the Saints as the sleeper team in the NFC a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, you did. And so we're going to ask that question real quick. Do you think Fournette is a better running back today than Kareem Hunt?
That's a very good question. I don't think he's as dynamic as Kareem Hunt used to be, but for what Leonard does with the pass protection as well as short yardage, I do think he has a lot more value than people think.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was just curious. Because to me, and I've looked at these guys, I think they're all kind of the same. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting how they separate into tiers. Dalvin Cook obviously being probably a tier above everybody else that was remaining on the market. But you're right. It's time to talk about the NFC South. A lot of people think it's the worst division in football. Are the Saints the favorite? Should they be the favorite? We will dive into that coming up next. Today's show is brought to you by Underdog Fantasy. August is here, and you know what that means. It's the official start of fantasy football drafting month. Get championship ready for your home league by trying out Best Ball on Underdog Fantasy. All you have to do in Best Ball leagues is one live snake draft. No waivers, no trades. Underdog sets your best lineup every week. And, well, their largest football contest is back, and it's even bigger. It's the largest fantasy football contest of all time with over $15 million in prizes, including an absurd $3 million going to the winner. That's enough to pay Kareem Hunt and sign him next season if you want him to join your favorite team. Last year, the winner drafted their team in July. So no waiting. Get to it right now, and you can sign up today by going to underdogfantasy.com and find them in the App Store. And all you have to do is use promo code LOCKED on your first deposit to get it doubled up to $100. So if you deposit 50, you'll double it. If you deposit 100, you'll double it with promo code LOCKED on at Underdog Fantasy, promo code LOCKED on. All right, Tony, let's dive into the question of the day. They were your sleeper team. a few weeks back, the New Orleans Saints. The NFC South is wild right now. It's in shambles. Tampa Bay is listing Kyle Trask or Baker Mayfield as their starting quarterback on their first unofficial depth chart. Your thoughts on the idea that the Saints are the best team in the NFC South?
I think they're the best team in the NFC South, and that's I can't make it any more clear than that.
Okay.
But yeah,
Are you sure you're not sucking up to Ross Jackson now? Come on.
No. Ross,
you know he's listening.
There's no suck up that's needed. Ross is my guy. But yeah, I really do. It's because of the things that you mentioned on defense. They literally have probably 3 Hall of Fame candidates on defense. One at each level, maybe even 4 if you include the 2 DBs. Dennis Allen, the familiarity he has, of course, running that unit for years. I think they've made steps to improve the offensive line. I think Derek Carr is a definite upgrade. You finally know who their quarterback is. Shout out to Jameis Winston, who's accidentally the funniest person in the NFL, by the way. But I also like what they've done at receiver. I think Chris Olave is very, very good. And if Mike Thomas can come give him anything. So, yeah, I still like their running backs. I like that group as a whole. I just think that they're the most rounded team with a veteran quarterback. I think Carolina is going to be really, really nice. They're going to finally be on an uptick. I thought they were poorly coached the last couple of years, and they've improved their talent level as well. And I like Atlanta. I think former Saint Terry Fontenot has done a real good job, and he's sort of gone under the radar with how he has built that roster. They did a lot of things I didn't agree with, right? With positional value, with taking Kyle Pitts, and then this year with Bijan Robinson. But when you look beyond that and look past that, if you look at their roster, adding Calais Campbell as a veteran, they have some guys that can run like the wind at linebacker. They've addressed corner. They really beefed up their offensive line through retention and through the draft. And then they do have an identity with these tall wide receivers. I want to see how your guy Desmond Ridder does with them. So they're an intriguing team, and I think they're going to play really hard. And they have guys that can get the ball into the end zone. Tampa, I'm just confused about the quarterback situation because I don't think either one of those guys are very good. And they have a lot of questions to answer now, losing Tom Brady and going to Baker Mayfield or Kyle Trask. And their offensive line is they were old, but now they got a lot of new parts, and I don't know if they can really play. And their coach might be coaching for his career here, his head coaching job. So there's a lot of questions with everybody else. So New Orleans is probably the best team. I won't say probably. I think they're the best team in the AFC South, and it's a little bit by default because everyone else has too many questions.
Yeah. I look at their schedule, and this is kind of where we're at. We have a really good feel of these rosters and kind of how they stack up with the rest of the league. And so if you're starting at home, and again, I've mentioned it, the Caesars Superdome is really tough to play at. The Tennessee Titans, they're a good team. They're a well-coached team. I give the edge to the Saints in that game. Then they have to go on the road. And yes, it's not ideal. I think Carolina has some talent. But Bryce Young in his second career start,
right?
Not bad. Then you have to go to Green Bay. If you have to go to Green Bay at any point, you'd want to go there early in the season. It isn't cold, and you don't know what Jordan Love is. He might still be working through some things. And then the next 3, Tampa at home, at New England, at Houston. I think they would beat Houston. I think they'll beat Tampa. Green Bay, Carolina, Tennessee. I think the one loss might be at New England. They might start 5-1. They might be the team of September, looking at this Saints schedule. And I know a lot of people just underestimate Derek Carr. He's a good quarterback. I was talking to some coaches in the league that said that they think he's kind of under the radar, goes under the radar, and these were offensive coaches. So we'll see, but I think they have a good defense. I think they have a proven quarterback. They could get off to a pretty good start, like 6-3, 7-2 in that range. And if they do that, I think they're going to win the division. So they should be the favorite. Not guaranteeing that they win the division, because I do think that some of these teams are interesting. The Falcons and the Carolina Panthers, by midseason, I think they could be much better than they are early in the year. But I think the best team coming out of the gate in the NFC South is going to be the Saints. They have the most proven quarterback in the division.
Right.
So I will take them. I agree with you.
And I'm always skeptical of teams that have questions on the offensive line, because that's the one unit on any football team. Notice I said unit, not single player. That's quarterback, obviously.
Yeah.
But the one unit that could really, really make your football team look awful is a group that can't block people, and it's a group that can't stop pass rushers. You're talking about, you're looking at 1st and 15 or 2nd and 15 or 2nd and 20 every single time almost when you have those teams putting them in those bad down and distance situations. Because if they're not good, I'm gonna tell you what's gonna happen on the offensive line. They'll start jumping. They'll start getting false starts. They'll start holding. They'll do whatever they can to keep the quarterback upright. And neither one, even though Baker can move around a little bit, Kyle Trask, to me, is stiff. And with a bad offensive line, that is a recipe for disaster. And Baker also is not the tallest guy in the world. So, yeah, I really have a hard time thinking that Tampa is going to be about anything. I'm thinking it's a 2-horse race between the Saints and the Falcons. And I'm going to tell you, I think the Saints have the advantage. The Saints do have the advantage, in my opinion. But what's interesting is we're going to get Saints and Falcons fans as if they need a reason to be beefing already, right? That's the fun part. We get to see that rivalry come back and be what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, overall, I agree. I think Tampa's better than some give it credit for. I also think that the culture is a little weird.
It's weird.
Baker, is he really going to be able to overcome that if he does start? It shouldn't be close with Kyle Trask. Like, it should just be done by now. It's kind of weird to me.
To me, it got weird. You know what made it weird? Something that someone did that they probably thought they were helping, but they hurt. When Bruce Arians came down from wherever he was in the stadium and started barking at the referees, to me, you circumvented the authority of the coach, a guy who was trying to prove that he still belonged to be a head coach. To me, in my opinion, and just my little mind with the way I think, that did more damage than it did good, in my opinion. And I think the players saw it. You know, that's like having to call your best friend over when you're trying to discipline your child. No, he should. Your best friend should obviously support the things that you say and compliment the things that you do and say if they see your kid doing something wrong. But he shouldn't have to come over and say, listen to your dad, and your dad is standing right there. And I think that's what happened. And that's the weird part about this whole thing to me is I think the coach might be a lame duck.
Yeah, it's a tough situation, especially given their quarterback issues and the fact that there are some good quarterbacks in next year's draft. They're in cap. They have cap issues. I was going to say something worse than that we shouldn't say. So we'll see on Tampa Bay. I do think they have some talent, though. So we'll see if they can stay healthy. They're certainly not as deep as some of these teams, including the Saints. But up next, let's discuss Odell Beckham Jr. He says the Rams would have crushed the Bengals in Super Bowl 56 had he not gotten hurt late in the second quarter. His comments and a reaction to them coming up next.
All right, third and final segment here on Locked On NFL on a Wednesday with Tony Wiggins and James Rapien. Odell Beckham Jr., the guy that we could have just said Odell and everyone would have known who we were talking about because he is one of those guys in NFL. You just mentioned one name and everybody knows who you're talking about. Well, he won a Super Bowl. He caught a touchdown early in the game. I think it was in the second quarter. He went out with a torn ACL, and you never want to see that. The Rams ended up winning the game anyway, and Odell now says that they would have crushed the Bengals. Had they not gotten hurt. I don't know why he said it. You get a ring. I don't care if you win by one touchdown. Was he going to play corner? Or was he going to play linebacker when Joe Mixon started carving up through the defense? I'm just trying to figure out. I know they became a little bit one-dimensional, but that one-dimension was dimensioning like a MF with Cooper Kupp. I get it. I just don't understand why you even say it. It doesn't matter if you win a Super Bowl by 40 or if you win it by 0.4, you won it. Just leave it at that.
Yeah, I'm with you there, and I'll read the quote here. He said, people have no idea what I was actually going to do that day. It was going to be the day where I catch 15 balls, maybe 250 yards. The game plan was for me. We would have beat him 42-17. And he was, he was off to a good start, no doubt. Had 2 catches, 50-plus yards, and a touchdown over Mike Hilton. Had a nice end-around run as well where he had a big gain up the sideline. Odell looked great. I agree with that. I also am close to this, as you know. And that was a game going into it where the Rams clearly had the better overall roster, even with some issues. I know they were dealing with some injuries. They had the better offensive line. Obviously, they had Cooper Kupp. He was the best receiver in football that year. Odell Beckham Jr. was a red zone threat for them going into that game. And so I get it. I understand the logic there in the confidence. But that wasn't going to be a blowout.
No.
Because that Bengals team, they were young in a lot of spots, but they just were never scared of. They never flinched once. Like Joe Burrow didn't play great in that game. And if he's given a half second more, Jamar Chase is grittying down the sideline and arguably the biggest play in Super Bowl history.
Mm-hmm.
I get Odell's mindset of, I was going to dominate. I do. Mm-hmm. I also think that we have a proven track record now of Lou Anarumo, the Bengals defensive coordinator, adjusting to offenses that were much better and more dynamic than that Rams offense. The Chiefs,
right?
They're 3-1 against the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, and they've held him scoreless in multiple second halves. Like this is including to get to Super Bowl 56. So I think they would have adjusted to Odell. That said, would that have led to more for Cooper Kupp? I don't know. All I know is the Rams didn't light up the scoreboard. No. That final drive was insane. And in Stafford and Kupp, that connection was just unbelievable. That said, I don't think there was any scenario outside of an injury to one of the quarterbacks where 42-17 is the end result, regardless of what Odell does. And he didn't even have 100 yards with 3 minutes to go in the second quarter. He was going to go for 250. I get the logic. I also asked Mike Hilton about this, the Bengals corner. He said, we'll see you in week 2. And obviously Odell and the Ravens play the Bengals in week 2.
Right. And so that's why I think it's just stupid to even bring up something like that. Look, dude, you won the game. And
I know.
And to say that you were going to go 15 for 250 when they had the dude on the other side who was like, if they gave away Biletnikoff awards in the NFL, he would have got it that year. So my point is, why even bring it up? You got the ring. You were a big part of it. Now, I don't think
he's never had 15 receptions in a game, by the way.
Right. Ever. And I don't think
12 is the most.
I don't think the Rams would have won the game had he not played at all. I think he was very, very pivotal early. But
he's had one 200-yard game in his career.
Right. So you're gonna in the Super Bowl, you're gonna do something you've never done with Cooper Kupp on the other side, who caught 700 balls in one season. So it just you ask yourself why. But this is what comes with him. The stuff like this, and I'm not angry, and I wouldn't be angry if I was a Ravens fan, because the bottom line is this is what comes with Odell Beckham. You just wonder why. It's really no big deal. The thing is though, when we're talking about a Super Bowl, it doesn't matter if you win by 1 or 51. If you get the hardware, you get the hardware. It's something that every kid dreamed up. I dreamed about it. You probably dreamed about it. We didn't make it to the NFL, and we didn't. It's just like, did he watch the game? Did he see what T. Higgins did to Jay? I know he pulled his mask, but my thing is, if you don't play corner, you can't say what would happen on those plays. And then here's newsflash: since Joe Burrow has been the quarterback, and Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and all of them have been there, has anybody really mollywopped them once? Have they just been? Has anybody wiped the field up with the Bengals just at any point in time? And have you seen the Bengals?
The Browns did want the Browns have got them a couple times, but to your point, it's very rare, and it was one team. Yes,
right.
So.
And they have shown themselves to be a super clutch team that is never out of anything ever. They're never out of a game. They probably should have beat. They should have beat the Chiefs last year, in my opinion.
I think there's some psychology here for Odell. By the way, that 200-yard game was in 2016 against the Ravens. He was still a member of the Giants. I think in the back of his mind, not that he isn't confident that he can go out there and be productive, but that Odell with the Rams wasn't the Odell we saw with the Giants.
No.
Like, he was really good, and I'm not saying that, but this wasn't the guy that was like lighting the NFL on fire.
Top three in the NFL.
Or a Justin Jefferson. Like, that's what he was doing. He was like that, commanding that type of attention with not a great quarterback. Like, I get it. He's not that anymore. And so maybe mentally that's what he's trying to do. And that's what this quote is like, man, I was about to do what I've always done in that game. And he obviously went a little extreme with the numbers. That's fine. I get it. I do love the confidence. I do think he could have a big year in Baltimore with Lamar Jackson, and I'm happy he got paid because good for him. Get as much money as you can. But let's be honest here. At best, at the very best in that game, he was the fourth best receiver on the field.
I would agree.
Cooper was 1, Jamar 2, Higgins 3, Odell 4. And the Rams would tell you that too if you gave them truth serum. So,
he is one of those
Odell.
guys. He does live for certain moments, though. And guys like him,
No doubt.
they live for certain moments. And he looked like he was up to the test that day.
No doubt. And he's probably going to ball out this year.
250. I don't think he would have done 15 for 250.
No.
Maybe if Eli Apple would have stayed on the whole game, he probably would have had 15 for 250.
Eli, man. See, Saints fans are going to love this pod. I mean, a shot at Eli Apple.
Yeah.
The fact that they're the favorites in the NFC South. They add a couple. I mean, this is just the Saint. This is Locked On Saints 2.0.
You get everything. You get absolutely everything when you deal with me after a night that I was drinking Glenlivet. Ain't no telling what I'm gonna say out of my mouth on this podcast. And see, you better hurry up and end it before I really get in trouble. So,
and that's why you got to hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Make sure you follow wherever you get your podcast. And for Tony Wiggins, I'm James Rapien. Thank you so much for watching and listening to Locked On NFL.